just to start off, how many of you guys have coded before? Raise your hands. All right, we got more than I was expecting. It seems like majority of you guys haven't though, so I'll try and keep it light. So bear with me. But yeah, I think coding is a very useful skill to learn. It's applicable in most industries. I have a lot of friends that are doing biology, finance. They've all had to code at some point in their career. I've personally learned from the textbook by Eric Mathias. The textbook was called Python Crash Course, and it was published in 2015. A lot of the material is still relative to this day, so yeah, I'll be going through concepts from that. So to start off with basic building blocks of programming, we have variables. Variables store information and data. There are different types of variables. You got whole numbers, decimals, text, and conditions. So here I have some examples. A number variable stores a whole number. Decimal variables store numbers with decimal places. Text store words or sentences. And usually you have to wrap them with quotations. Conditional variables have two types of values, true or false. And so to kind of like give you an idea of what a conditional variable is, if you think about the word condition, like, oh, I'll take out the trash on the condition that you do the dishes. So a condition is a promise. And so I'll give you an example right here. If I have a color that's red, I can have a variable called isRed equal color is red. So if I print this out, we'll spit out true. But if I change its color to blue, it'll spit out false. So those are the main basic types of variables, and moving on to what you can do with those variables are operations. So here I have three variables, A, B, and C, with the values 10, 10, and 20. And so some simple math you can do with it is like storing, or some simple addition. So I'll store my result in a variable called result, and I'll add A plus B. So actually, if I this and print this out, you get 20. And so what's cool is you can actually reuse your variables. And so if I wanted to say divide result by 20, it should give me 1. So if I do result equals result divided by C, it's taking whatever this spit out right here, which is 20, and then stores it right here divided by C, which is 20. And then so if I print this out, it gives me 1. 20 and 1, which are from the two print statements. These print statements, by the way, just kind of like spit out information on the screen. Yeah. And so you can actually store your variables inside a list. So instead of having like multiple variables like 1, 2, and 3, and 4, you can actually just have one variable and store a bunch of them in a list, closed with square brackets. And how you access these is through something called an index. And so if I actually want to get, say, dog, actually I should mention this first. For some reason, whoever came up with this decided they want to start their counting from 0 instead of 1. So you got to think about positioning with indexes. This is 0 position, 1, 2, 3. And so if I want to get a dog out of this list, I just do animals and then put a bracket with 1. So I print this out, it should give me a dog. And you can do this with like iguana too if you wanted. And if you actually try and access something outside of the list, it throws an error. So I'm sure if you guys like, maybe you came across like a joke or meme like debugging sucks. This is what happens. You're trying to usually fix like errors like this. And so all of this doesn't really matter if you can't control the flow of your code. That's where if statements come in. If you remember conditions from earlier, I showed the red example. And so with conditions, you can basically specify what blocks of code you want to run based on a prompt. And so if this condition is true, and I run this, it runs a true block. It prints out in the true block. If it's false, however, it hits the else condition, which goes into the false block. And so here's a more practical example. Obviously, like a real program wouldn't set up their password like this, but I'm getting some password. If password equals 123, which is like say that user's password, you log in. So if I type in 123, the user gets logged in. But if I run that again and type in something else, like password, then failed to log in. And so yeah, the last concept I'm going to talk about real quick is just loops. For loops are used for running blocks of code over like multiple times. So if I want to print out like something like print hi like 5 times, I just run this right forward with that. And so yeah, wrapping it all together, here's kind of like an example of like a small program that counts all the names in a list that start with J. So here we have the list of names and then a number variable that's set equal to 0. And so every time it hits this if statement and sees J starting at the beginning of the name, it adds 1. And so if I run this, it tells me all the names that start with J, all the ones that don't, and then tells me the number of names that start with J, like the count. And so yeah, everything I showed you within 5 minutes was kind of the tip of the iceberg. Only went over some pretty core or pretty basic concepts. You know, and I really enjoyed computer science so far. So if any of you guys are interested in like learning more, just talk to me and I can send you some resources.